very short, so can you please not take more than 5 minutes? I mean, in English there is a phrase, as you sow, so shall you reap. Pakistan, so terrorism. So they are getting terrorism now. And that is unfortunate thing. We basically condemn all sort of terrorism. Any kind of sort of terrorism, we condemn for that. But unfortunately, if you start terrorism, terrorism is the biggest industry in Pakistan at the moment, and that's a very unfortunate thing. And the same terrorism is destroying Pakistan at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is from Holland, the young man Junaid Qureshi, who is leader of Jammu Kashmir Democratic Liberation Party. So, Junaid sir, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The title of my paper is Kashmir and Kashmiris Sufferers of a Prestigious War of Prestige. The region of South Asia harbors many interrelated conflicts. Conflicts between Afghanistan and Pakistan, between Afghanistan, Pakistan and Iran, accusations of Pakistani-sponsored terrorism by Iran against their Shia community, insurgencies in Balochistan and Sindh, forced conversions, and Hindu ultranationalism. All are capable of nurturing the already existing complexities and sensitivities in the region. In my opinion, the Kashmir issue, along with its many interrelated layers like proxy warfare, political and historical sensitivities, and contention over water resources, is the most dangerous one in the region. It has become the sword of Damocles which is hanging over the heads of the people of South Asia and has obstructed trade, development, cooperation and peace in the region. It has already resulted in 3 large-scale wars between India and Pakistan, and with the disturbing spread of terrorism, one trembles at the thought of what it could trigger further when both neighbors have acquired nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, we Kashmiris have been the worst sufferers of this hostility. For decades, we Kashmiris have been made hostage to this prestigious war of prestige between the two countries. I, as a Kashmiri living in Srinagar, Jammu, Muzaffarabad and Gilgit, face the same problems, the same shelling, the same instability and the same pain every day. On both sides of the Yellow Sea, we Kashmiris have been extinguishing our existence for decades in order to enhance the Republic of India and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Somewhere in this junction of confusions, our dignity and identity of Kashmiriyat was snatched away from us. The proxy war in the early 90s, which was started in the Kashmir Valley by the Pakistani military establishment, while it used innocent Kashmiri youth as sacrificial lambs, showed the Indian Army the way to our homes. Since then, both parties, the militants and the Indian Army, have been guilty of excesses and human rights violations. At the end, it has been the Kashmiri who suffered in every possible way. Even now, we Kashmiris and especially our youth keep on being sufferers while the world chooses to conveniently look away. If the so-called romanticism of terrorist forces like the Islamic State, Taliban and Al-Qaeda can seduce misguided and disillusioned youth from civilized societies like Europe, what could it possibly do to the young people living in politically instable places like Kashmir, where this terrorism is literally around the corner? Religious sectarianism, complemented by extremist views exported from Pakistan, is steadily finding its way into Kashmir. Religious radical elements have been exploiting the Kashmir issue, which could have disastrous consequences in the future, as global terrorist organizations have expressed their desire to expand their war zone into Kashmir as a new battleground. I shudder whenever I analyze that this influx of extremism in Kashmir might be part of a larger conspiracy which tries to lay foundations among the disillusioned youth of Kashmir for global terrorist organizations like the Islamic State, Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The international community, along with pro-peace forces in India and Pakistan and Kashmir, should make it their immediate priority to protect our youth from getting used by these elements who are determined to destroy the pillars of humanism, brotherhood, and secularism. This is only possible if the youth of Kashmir is provided with opportunities which acknowledge and channelize their talent, while it removes the instilled fear of a failed future. There is an urgent need to equip the Kashmiri youth with knowledge, degrees, jobs, and a broad-based world vision to face the challenges of this fast-changing world. Besides the wall of hate between India and Pakistan, which has provided fertile ground for the promotion of religious fundamentalism, 70 years of division of Kashmir and Kashmiris, along with laws like PPO, AFSPA and PSA, political killings like that of Arif Shahid, enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrest, heavy military presence in both parts of Jammu and Kashmir, injustice to minorities like the Kashmiri Pandits, event-based separatism and political deceit have been barring us from embarking upon a path of peace and reconciliation in South Asia. Peace and reconciliation which will also require us Kashmiris to introspect and realize that our genuine demands for justice will only be heard and respected by the world when we stop distinguishing between culprits on the basis of religion or sentimental alliances. While rightfully asking for justice in the Kunan Pushpura tragedy and punishment to the guilty soldiers of the Indian security forces, we must also, with the same ardency, seek justice regarding the Chiteshingpura tragedy and punishment to the militants of Lashkar-e-Toiba. We must start comprehending that atrociousness does not have any religion. I've always firmly believed that whatever is beneficial for Kashmir and Kashmiris, including a solution to the Kashmir issue according to the wishes of the majority of the people living in Jammu and Kashmir, will prove to be beneficial for India and Pakistan. But I have now come to a point that I have started altering my belief. I now will be content if both countries will embark on a path of friendship amongst each other, even if being brothers is a step too far. As long as they can be good neighbors, I am satisfied. At least we Kashmiri will then cease being the victims of this bitter hostility. I have reached this conclusion as I desperately long for peace. I have come to understand that a solution to the Kashmir issue can only be achieved if both countries leverage trust and initiate efforts to solve their own deep-rooted problems and together build fundamentals of love and understanding instead of hate and alienation. While here at the UN, I could request the international community to come up with alternative narratives to solve the Kashmir issue, or I could request it to provide us Kashmiris living in both parts of this divided paradise the chance to interact and decide our future amongst ourselves. But I will not do that, not because I don't want to, but because I've come to realize that the role of the international community is limited to facilitating an atmosphere of tranquility, mutual trust and dialogue, while it must take steps to ensure that both India and Pakistan will not violate the human rights of Kashmiris and their own inhabitants in order to safeguard their debatable national interests. That is exactly what I will ask you to do. I request you to make India and Pakistan comprehend that the core issue between them is not Kashmir. It is this wall of hate and distrust which they have erected and keep on nourishing, while they keep blaming us Kashmiris and play politics. This wall is the main barrier which has deprived us of a solution to this long-standing conflict. The sooner they start demolishing this wall with your assistance, the better for their own inhabitants and us Kashmiris. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dinesh sir.